Welcome to the Synergy Science Podcast, back together, all of us for the first time in a couple weeks. Thanks for tuning in today. And we're going to start off with the future of money from Max.
All right, guys. Well, this has been something of relevance for some time. Money has gone from trading items back and forth, to paper, coins, and plastic. And what's next? Well, since even our credit cards are going digital, it's not long before our coinage is too. So what people are suggesting is that instead of money, you have digital money storage devices, such as, it'll look most likely like an external battery. And what you do is when you go to a cash register or you need to pay someone, you'd plug in or scan this device and you transfer money wirelessly from there. That's all I have.
So hang on, I'm just looking at this. So where does that attach into, that little?
This is actually just a picture of an external battery. I just used it for reference.
Okay. Why not just actually use your phone?
Well, that's how our credit cards are already used.
Right.
So they're saying like a separate device, because if you lose your phone, you lose all your money. So that they would just load this device up with money or just like electronic digits, and like every time you plug it in, so say something was $12,
right.
So then it would just remove 12 from your storage.
So what's the difference between that and a credit card?
This would be used for everyday things. Like you can't just use this on the internet to wirelessly pay something internationally or from one company to the other. You'd use this in person, pay in person.
So this is like a piggy bank that is digital?
Yeah, basically.
It's
a wallet that's digital.
I've often kind of wondered about this too, the future of money, because what does it cost to make money? Like, what is the actual cost of making money? I don't know, but you would think that could be a pretty significant.
Cheaper when it's online
right.
and digital.
Yeah.
And why do we still continue to make money? Would we be at risk of theft with something like this? If somebody were to steal your device, does it go with it, or do you have to have like a special sign-in? I don't know.
I have no idea. That's just.
How many companies are working on this? Do you know?
No, this is just a speculation of the future. There is actually no companies working on this at the moment. It's just a suggestion. Just says one might suggest to abolish the penny at this point in time.
Sure.
Okay.
I know like Samsung Pay has the thing where.
Yeah, that iPhone.
And iPhone has their pay system. Each company of the cell phones seem to be coming up with a way of.
But that's wired to a credit card.
Right, that is wired.
Have you guys paid with your phones before?
No.
Nope.
I
paid with my Apple Watch before.
I've never paid with my phone because my phone is a slider. So yes, you can't do that. Okay, interesting thoughts, Max. I think we're going to Isaac with some news on some military launches.
Yeah, so right now the military, in order to launch their stuff up into space and around the world, they use rockets with engines supplied by Russia, which is kind of a problem because sure they work, but we're getting them from Russia. We should be self-sufficient. So, as you can see here, there's Vladimir Putin. The Congress, they're saying that we shouldn't be so reliant on them in case, like something would happen.
Tensions rise.
Right.
So when you say like rockets, I mean like if we're launching a missile type of rocket, that's the same thing, or just stuff that's going into space for satellites and that type of rockets?
NASA has their own program.
Okay.
They have their stuff, but the military, they get theirs from Russia because it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whenever they need to launch, say, a satellite for tracking stuff with maybe, like, LiDAR or something, that's what they would use.
Now, you think that if you're the American military, you would use made in the USA parts?
Well, yeah. That's kind of the whole purpose on this topic, because Congress has finally came to this point, and they're like...
So how long have they been going to Russia for cheaper devices?
Pretty long. I mean, they haven't we've never made our own for the military because of the price.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's brought to the attention that we should get some new suppliers. So ULA and SpaceX, those are the two major companies that they're going to start purchasing from. The ULA is made up of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, but they've also associated with Blue Origin, which is run by Jeff Bezos. And then SpaceX, we've talked about them before, Elon Musk.
Legend.
Yes, legend.
You would think that would be a pretty good contract to get if you're one of these companies, government contract that you can get to supply them with rockets. I'm surprised that has not happened at this, before
Right.
this
Like
point.
sooner.
Yeah,
It definitely
exactly.
gives initiative to these companies to
Yeah.
continue because there's an opportunity for them.
Yeah.
Not just Mars anymore.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
And as you were kind of saying before, why the wait?
Yeah.
Well, because right now we have so many from Russia, it'd be kind of a pain to switch everything because we haven't had the technology, and Congress is finally moving it around.
And we know Congress works at a very quick pace.
Yep, very fast.
All right. So, solar panels.
That's you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of want to talk about solar panels because it seems to be a very efficient way to enhance our lives, and it's kind of going to be the future, according to some people and studies, articles. So first I'll explain what exactly a solar panel is. We all know that it converts light to electricity, but not many people, or I just want to explain what it is. So this is one example of a solar panel, how it works. This is a photovoltaic cell example, and what it does is it converts sunlight to electricity, but it does this by allowing photons to knock electrons free from atoms to generate electricity. So this is an example of the photovoltaic cell. What it is here is you can see there's two different types of material, which it's both silicon, but they're both coated differently. So they're both doped. One is doped with a positive charge, and one is doped with a negative charge. By doping these different materials, the top one would be phosphorus because that creates a negative charge. The bottom one, for example, would be dosed with boron because that produces fewer electrons and therefore a positive charge. So with a surplus of electrons on the top here and a deficit of electrons on the bottom, you will get a current because you have a difference in electrical charge. So by attaching plates to the back and wiring that around to a power source, which would be right here, then you can power or charge a battery, for example, charge your cell phone. I think it takes about 12 of these small voltaic cells combined in a panel for charging your cell phone.
That's
So,
pretty dope.
that is.
Yep.
So this is how the sunlight is actually converting, or we are converting the sunlight to energy. It's kind of like plants, except this is actually a lot less efficient, which I'll mention in a second. So what happens is, again, the photons come in, they knock these, there's a whole bunch of extra electrons right here in the negative side plate, and this is an NP junction, negative, positive. That's why you see the N-type semiconductor and P-type semiconductor. When sunlight comes in, the photons kind of bump these electrons out of place. Then it goes up and it goes through the wires back down to the holes or where the lesser amount of electrons are in the bottom. And that gives you the energy, the flow of electricity. And unfortunately, this is not as efficient as plants. Currently, most solar panels are about 11 to 15% efficient. So in context with other ways of producing electricity, it's not very efficient, but the good side about this is that it's a renewable source of energy, and even though we're not getting all the power from the sun, we're still just using a pure source of energy, so even if we're not harnessing it all, we're still harnessing positive.
One thing that's kind of interesting, I just pulled this up, is cost per kilowatt hour of different energy sources.
Okay.
And coal, just to give us a comparison, is 10 to 14 cents per kilowatt hour. Natural gas, 7 to 13 cents per kilowatt hour. By the way, this is coming from the Department of Energy's 2014 Energy Outlook, so pretty good. Nuclear power, which is your fission power, is 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Wind is 8 cents to 20 cents per kilowatt hour. Solar, the photovoltaic, is 13 cents per kilowatt hour. There's another type of solar called solar thermal, is 24 cents. Geothermal, the energy of the earth, is 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Biomass, which would be basically using plant material and plant matter, you could burn it. It could be like wood, for example. 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and hydro is 8 cents per kilowatt hour. What's really interesting is I haven't looked at these numbers for a while because I haven't taught environmental science for a number of years, maybe 5 years. But when I was teaching that class, we always used to do a cost analysis, like a cost-benefit analysis. And the solar used to be by far the most expensive. And I'm looking at this number, 13 cents per kilowatt hour. It has come down significantly just in the last 5 years that I haven't been teaching environmental science. It's really now almost as comparable to these fossil fuels for cost, which is amazing because not long ago it was really expensive to make this type of energy, and that's why a lot of people sort of stayed away from it because, it was renewable, but the cost was always not very, very low. But it sounds like they're doing a better job of getting these produced in a more
there's
efficient
definitely
way.
a lot of initiative to get this working, because in the long run, when you install this in a factory or a company, it's going to make things cheaper. Maybe the initial investment may cost a bunch, but it's only going to make it cheaper when you're saving money on electricity.
Right.
Could we just synthetically create photosynthesis in a better way? Just like synthetically create plant leaves.
There is
And
research being
Rupp
done
them.
in that sense, but it's kind of more of a modeling the plant approach. Yeah, I'd have to look it up some more, but I know that there is. If you can model off the plant, like you know how we're making robots based on animals, that'd be no different than modeling this intake of energy from the plants.
Well, and I know the two of you guys for sure understand how photosynthesis works. If you think about the energy with the electron transfer through those electron transport chains and then pumping the ATP, realistically, the plants use that to then make sugars, whereas we would just want to capture that energy at that point. We don't want to convert it to sugars. So in a sense, we would. I think we kind of are using the same concept with passing electrons and taking high energy electrons, which is what you're kind of doing with that PV, and then passing them and getting the energy and then kind of letting them fall back down. In a sense, it's really what we're kind of doing.
I was thinking of just recreating their capturing mechanism, because you said it was only 15%.
Oh yeah, as far as making it more efficient. Okay, I see what you're saying. Right. I wonder what the efficiency rate is in plants.
Probably 100%.
I don't know.
So I think that's what the model's based off of.
Yeah, we'd have to look. Anyways, a little bit about the growth of solar energy in the U.S. The Solar Energy Industries, which is an organization, says that U.S. solar installations will more than double in 2016, so this year, which is a 119% increase. So this graph is kind of just a representation. I won't take. It's just a representation of the exponential growth. As it gets more and more cheaper to produce, companies and corporations are deciding to go to solar energy and utilize it for not only these companies but also residential. So you can see homes and in developing countries, you might even see they're trying to solve their energy problems. If it's a hotter place, a lot of the places are hotter climates, and if the sun is beating down, they might as well utilize it. Instead of creating a full power grid, you can create a micro power grid.
And guys, in a sense, even if you don't even think about photovoltaic cells, we all understand the idea of something called passive solar energy. I mean, if you sit in your house by a window that's the sun is beating on, we all understand, and to a degree, we sort of already do rely on that. It's just capturing even more energy from that and making it better.
Just making it more efficient. Today, solar power is only about 1% of nation's electricity, so it's a lot lower than it probably should be or will be, because it's definitely increasing. The cost is decreasing a lot since 2010, according to the Solar Energy Industries. The cost has fallen 67%, so we're going in the right direction. And the government is working to increase incentive for the U.S. to utilize this solar technology.
So like tax cuts or benefits?
Exactly.
I think if you install certain things, energy efficiency things in your house, you can take a deduction on your property.
I think that's how they do it in Singapore with hybrid cars too.
It'd be interesting to see. I like around here we have the wind turbines. It'd be interesting to see why in addition to the turbines, the wind, why would we not cover those with PV cells? If you think about you already have that there. Why not, in addition to the wind energy, get the energy from the sun while it's sitting up there? It would be interesting
And the
to see
sun
that.
provides way more than enough to provide energy. All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some technology that's being made with this. This is an example of a flexible solar panel technology where you can actually roll these solar panels up into a spool, and then you can use them for military purposes, for example. And what this is it's designed by John Hingley of Renovagen, and this is a copper indium gallium selenide solar cell, CIGS, and it's bonded with tensile fabric. So what it is they use the same solar technology and wove it into a usable format that is flexible. So now they can easily haul this energy provider in, for military, for example, roll it out, and that's going to be a lot safer and cheaper than,
And more movable.
right, especially like for military convoys to protect it. It's going to be a lot
Yeah.
easier than what they're doing currently. And according to John Hingley and his research and development that he's been doing, this can create a 24-hour microgrid, so off the grid, and you are creating your own energy. And you can be transported with planes, trailers, or helicopters, and it can be used for emergencies, festivals, mining companies, military use.
Basically anything.
You could see that even this in personal applications with
Right.
people taking a camping trip.
Yeah.
You know, if you're out,
I guess so, yeah.
like literally in a rustic area where you don't have plugs in, but
That'd
you
be really
want
expensive.
to pump up your air mattress.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, in a small scale. You
How
know,
expensive
I'm
is this? Do you know? Do you have
I don't
an
know
idea?
the price. No, but I know there are some competitive products, but I guess this is 10 times more powerful.
Oh,
I'm not sure on the price. I'd have to look that up.
that's cool.
But yeah, definitely in the right direction. And it's 5 meters wide and 200 meters long when it's fully extended.
So probably
Wow.
not ideal for camping.
No, but I mean, if you could shrink this down a
Yeah,
little bit,
the
make
same
a smaller
technology.
scale sort of thing that you could have.
I know I read a different article where they created kind of a string of solar panels where it just went up into a spool, like I don't know, a fishing line spool
Okay.
kind of thing. And then what they could do is hook up a car to it, just drive it out, and all these unwind, and then you have a whole bunch of power that can be generated for on a camping trip, for example.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I thought that was interesting.
Do you guys, are you guys, anybody here part of the high mileage car that they're doing for the school this year? Anybody part of that?
I was in there for
kind
a
of.
bit.
Yeah.
Are they doing anything? How are they powering that? Are they using any
They're
solar
They're
panels?
using they're using gas.
Well, they are.
3.5 horsepower engine.
So this is making it very lightweight because you could also
Yeah.
you power a vehicle with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can. I don't think they have the option of
Oh,
solar.
they don't have to use gas. Okay.
They
Yeah, I
have
know there are
restrictions.
different challenges where they do
Yeah.
use solar.
Right.
All right, some corporations, and what I kind of talked about earlier. This is an example, Whole Foods right here. It is partnering with Solar City, and Solar City, interestingly enough, is co-founded by Elon Musk, which we kind of mentioned earlier.
He's everywhere.
Yeah,
He's electric.
and
Yeah,
the NRG partnered with Whole Foods. So Solar City and the energy partnered with Whole Foods, and what they're doing is trying to install solar panels for about 1/4 of chains, and like they have 431 locations right now, and they're trying to install about 1/4 with solar panels.
That's pretty cool.
So with the organic food and the healthiness that
So
Whole
organic
Foods is
energy.
yeah.
Organic
yeah,
energy.
promoting. So it makes sense with their business model.
Do you know if? Okay, you're looking at business here, but if I did this in my home,
Yep.
obviously I could produce enough energy to probably do power my home. Would I make enough energy where I could actually sell that back to the grid? Because there are people that do that. Like if you were to put up a turbine, you could actually sell energy back to the grid.
Well, usually the companies come to you asking about the turbine, and
Right,
you
right.
kind of like let them go on your land.
Right,
They
but
pay
what I'm
you.
saying is you can.
I see what
Yeah.
you're saying though.
Like if you did it, you
Maybe a
could
lot
actually.
of solar panels.
So I'm wondering, like, would you get enough energy to do that, or would it just be pretty much for your own house?
All right, it probably depends on how much you're willing to invest in
Okay.
them. I don't know exactly on the numbers, but
Because you could do energy storage for your own
Right.
home too, instead of.
Well, that was
You
a
know,
question I
sound
see
it off.
coming up here. Your next slide is everybody else says, well, what about a rainy day, or what about a cloudy day?
You got that energy storage.
So what
then.
are we going to do here when?
yeah, the
We
energy
can't.
storage. So energy storage is quite a big deal because currently there's no good way to store energy. When we create energy with the power grid and we're using coal, burning coal, there's no good way to store it. So when we turn on the lights at night, there's no sunlight. We're using actively burning coal in order to provide for that. So what we're trying to do, or what General Electric is doing, is they're trying to come up with a better way for storing electricity, and in particularly storing electricity from the solar panels. Because if we can take the energy from a very hot day during the day and utilize it for the night or cloudy days when it's most needed, then this is going to be very important and very groundbreaking. So what they came up with was to use CO2 as like the battery. So it's kind of confusing, and you think CO2 is like destroying our atmosphere. You don't think that can be used, but what their idea is to use CO2 as a giant battery that can store excess solar energy. So when you produce too much that's not being used, we can store it in CO2. So I guess they have a two-part solution to this problem. They're going to collect solar energy and store it in a liquid of molten salt, and then they're going to cool CO2, cool liquid CO2, so it becomes dry ice, and then I think that's going to be where the energy is stored. And then in order to generate this power when it's called upon and needed, they're going to use molten salt to transform the dry ice, which is the dry ice CO2, into supercritical fluid. So they're going to take this dry ice storage and convert that into energy when it is needed.
Okay.
And that's going to flow into this turbine right here. This is just a prototype, but they said it's the size of fitting on the shelf.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Like,
that's-
that's just
Yeah.
very small,
That's not
but
big.
it's actually an actual size prototype. So it's called a sun rotor, they called it. And by flowing this supercritical fluid that is not even a liquid or a gas, it's kind of a mixed property. By flowing it into here, that's going to generate the turbine, make it spin, I believe, and then that's going to produce energy when we need it most. So they're storing
cool.
the energy with CO2, so it kind of eliminates two problems at once.
Do you think they could just have it the energy condensed down enough where it could just be in a chamber and just bounce around aimlessly until you need it, or is that something viable?
Yeah, so right now, like, batteries are very inefficient, and storing energy does not work for the power grid. So that's why
They
like
try to make this
GE, the global research at GE, according to Steven Sandburn, who is a senior engineer there, he said we need to make renewable energy available to the grid when it is needed, and that's the grand challenge. So utilizing energy when we need it and need it most, that's what engineers are trying to accomplish.
That's cool.
Cool. All right, so what's the future?
Alright, so looking into the future, we will be able to see many devices with solar panels, probably homes, and an interesting thing is that researchers at the Center of Advanced Solar Photophysics at Los Alamos National Laboratory are creating these, or have creating the technology for windows with solar power. So they're using quantum technology and nanotechnology to create windows that you can see through and everything, but it's going to provide energy. And that's kind of quite amazing, because if you can, like Mr. Rupp was talking about, we see windows, we're using them for the heat, and that why not use them for energy? Everyone, I think most houses have windows, and especially tall buildings with many windows that are very high in the sky are going to receive a lot of sunlight. And according to energy.gov, this said that by replacing all of the World Trade Center's windows with solar powered windows, it could power more than 350 apartments.
Oh wow,
Do they, I was just thinking about
it's
this.
actually a pretty big.
Do they use solar energy to power, like, the space station?
Yes.
Is that basically all? Because how are they?
Those big wings that
Yeah.
they have are only
Yeah.
so, like, you see like the wings branching off. Those
You know,
are
because if you
only
think
solar
about,
panels.
we had talked about colonizing Mars, and
Right.
you know, we're not taking coal with us,
You can't really burn
and I mean,
anything in space
so
either.
you have to have some sort of a different option for for energy, and this could be one of these options.
So that is the future and where we're going.
What's the little guy over here with the red?
So this is the window.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
the window.
that's the window
Glass.
technology.
I thought
that
those
they
were
were-
fiber
It's a
optics.
window of glass.
This is just a jacket that can power your cell phones.
Oh, wow.
Maybe the next fashion trend. I don't know.
Fashion-y.
It looks like at Nielsen. It's like a flannel slash
Tech
Yeah, as a flannel / photovoltaic cell.
Yeah.
Like,
That's Nielsen's next thing. Okay, so thanks for that report. That's very good. And then we're going to talk about lights apparently being bad for your health.
there's a new study, well, not really actually new, that the light we've been using has been bad for our health. So what they're saying is that for the past 100 years, the light bulbs that the light that the light bulbs that we are currently using produce is bad for us. And they're saying that fluorescence could actually be the worst. So why I say this is that they have done studies that have revealed that these lights cause a disruption in our circadian rhythm, which is basically our internal sense of a time in a 24-hour period scale. So when this is disrupted, this can lead to depression, anxiety, obesity, and even cancer. But besides that, when your circadian rhythm is knocked off, you don't have a sense of 24-hour time. So where your body would have this perfect circadian rhythm outside with the sun. So what they're saying to do for a solution is that they made tunable LED lights that can produce different colored wavelengths. And what they found is that the blue wavelengths can make the brain release cortisol to increase concentration, and that they can use red wavelengths to release melatonin, and that will induce a sleepiness or a calmness. So for what they've already done is that at Renton School District in Washington, they installed these light bulbs in their school, and they've had positive effects. So they'd use the red wavelengths, and they would use this after recess to calm the kids. And then during test days, they'd use the blue wavelengths to increase their concentration.
Wow.
Have you ever had that, when you're in fluorescent lights, you kind of get a headache?
I'm just thinking about that as you're speaking. Literally, these lights started bothering me. I'm not kidding. I'm just like.
Now you feel like me. All these 4 years, you feel like me.
I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, this is not really the greatest
Stop.
light. All these fluorescents.
I don't like fluorescent lights. They really mess with me.
That's a very interesting
They're evil
story,
guys. And what they want to do at the International Space Station, since sunrises are every 90 minutes, the astronauts are basically chronic insomniacs. So with the constant light, they have no sense of time of day or night. So what they're going to do is that they're going to install these tunable LED lights, and they put the red wavelengths on when it's time to sleep, and then they put the blue ones on during the daytime for concentration.
So basically, you're in the school you're talking about, their classrooms would be blue?
All these would be
blue wavelengths.
Blue wavelengths. So it wouldn't actually be blue.
You wouldn't actually.
It would just be increased blue colored wavelengths.
Gotcha.
So instead of these, it'd be all little LED lights. If you actually switch the slide, I have some examples. That's what they would look like, essentially. And then you can kind of change the color on them, but it wouldn't actually change the color of the light.
So
which is kind of interesting. I don't actually know how they do that.
It wouldn't change the color of the light.
Apparently not. It's really confusing.
A smart LED bulb.
Mm-hmm. And they have different, they said halogen lights, I think are also.
So is this bulb right here actually used for the colored purposes? Because I know they have, I've heard of these before, Brian. You can also have.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they use these for industrial purposes, because I could not find any industrial examples. But I do know that you can use these for commercial purposes, and they'll have the same effects.
Okay.
And basically, by using these tunable LED lights, we can reverse the harmful effects that the light bulbs we have been using on our circadian rhythms, and we can use these to stimulate the brain to release the correct hormones at the correct time of day.
So that's a very interesting story.
Yeah, that is.
If we want to increase our kids' test scores, we have to get these lights.
Yeah.
Mr. Figueroa, can be your last.
Hey,
that
try
can be your last
taking.
big
We
thing.
could take it. We could do a test in our school. You could do a test with fluorescent lights and a test with daylight.
All right.
I like daylight better.
Let's try that on our next AP bio test.
Let's do it. Turn off the
We're
lights.
gonna use the one that gets you really excited. Okay, there we go.
Blue, bright
I'm
blue.
gonna mute our volume and let them listen.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We've evolved with tools, and tools have evolved with us. our ancestors created these hand axes 1.5 million years ago, shaping them to not only fit the task at hand, but also their hand. However, over the years, tools have become more and more specialized. These sculpting tools have evolved through their use, and each one has a different form which matches its function. And they leverage the dexterity of our hands in order to manipulate things with much more precision. But as tools have become more and more complex, we need more complex controls to control them. And so designers have become very adept at creating interfaces that allow you to manipulate parameters while you're attending to other things, such as taking a photograph and changing the focus or the aperture. But the computer has fundamentally changed the way that we think about tools, because computation is dynamic. So it can do a million different things and run a million different applications. However, computers have the same static physical form for all of these different applications and the same static interface elements as well. And I believe that this is fundamentally a problem because it doesn't really allow us to interact with our hands and capture the rich dexterity that we have in our bodies. And my belief is that then we must need new types of interfaces that can capture this rich abilities that we have and that can physically adapt to us and allow us to interact in new ways. And so that's what I've been doing at the MIT Media Lab and now at Stanford. So with my colleagues, Daniel Leitinger and Hiroshi Ishii, we created Inform, where the interface can actually come off the screen and you can physically manipulate it. Or you can visualize 3D information physically and touch it and feel it to understand it in new ways. Or you can interact through gestures and direct deformations to sculpt digital clay. Or interface elements can arise out of the surface and change on demand. And the idea is that for each individual application, the physical form can be matched to the application. And I believe this represents a new way that we can interact with information by making it physical. So the question is, how can we use this? So traditionally, urban planners and architects build physical models of cities and buildings to better understand them. So with Tony Tang at the Media Lab, we created an interface built on Inform to allow urban planners to design and view entire cities. And now you can walk around it, but it's dynamic, it's physical, and you can also interact directly. Or you can look at different views, such as population or traffic information, but it's made physical. We also believe that these dynamic shape displays can really change the ways that we remotely collaborate with people. So when we're working together in person, I'm not only looking at your face, but I'm also gesturing and manipulating objects. And that's really hard to do when you're using tools like Skype. And so using Inform, you can reach out from the screen and manipulate things at a distance. So we use the pins of the display to represent people's hands, allowing them to actually touch and manipulate objects at a distance. And you can also manipulate and collaborate on 3D data sets as well. So you can gesture around them as well as manipulate them. And that allows people to collaborate on these new types of 3D information in a richer way than might be possible with traditional tools. And so you can also bring in existing objects, and those will be captured on one side and transmitted to the other. Or you can have an object that's linked between two places, so as I move a ball on one side, the ball moves on the other as well. And so we do this by capturing the remote user using a depth sensing camera like a Microsoft Kinect. Now, you might be wondering, how does this all work? And essentially what it is 900 linear actuators that are connected to these mechanical linkages that allow motion down here to be propagated in these pins above. So it's not that complex compared to what's going on at CERN, but it did take a long time for us to build it. And so we started with a single motor, a single linear actuator, and then we had to design a custom circuit board to control them, and then we had to make a lot of them. And so the problem with having 900 of something is that you have to do every step 900 times. And so that meant that we had a lot of work.
All right, we're back.
It's
We are
amazing.
back.
Yeah, sorry that the video was small, but I think we got the point
That was a
across
pretty good
that
video.
shape-shifting technology is becoming a thing, and it's quite amazing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's a big iPad.
That's crazy.
It might revolutionize the way we Skype each other across the world. We're
Yeah.
gonna see their
Or help
hands.
people learn information.
So literally, it's almost like, let's say you're in the military, and
Yep.
you're gone on tour, and you can give your son a hug, or your daughter a hug, or your wife a
Sure,
hug.
that's,
Oh,
In a
that's where
sense,
this is going.
You know,
yeah.
like it's a
I didn't even
virtual
think about it
one,
like
but,
that.
If
it'd
you
be very interesting.
like you see this table right now, it's a model of where the technology is going. They said 900 linear actuators they're using. Imagine a table at one side of a Skype call, and then another table at the
Yeah.
other side of the Skype call. If you have a Connect sensor from above that can see your hands, and can relay that onto the other one, that's going to be very unique. And also imagine this. Like you walk into your desk, and your desk is just made up of these linear actuators.
Yeah.
You can have different settings that, say, create a stand for your phone and your computer. And
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
I was just thinking, like in the math classroom, and I was especially, I remember calculus way back in 1994, that you'd have to try to visualize.
What these
You know, like,
equations
yeah.
made.
So you got this equation, and you got to try to visualize what happens, and then let's rotate it around the x-axis and all this crazy stuff. I could just imagine how easy this could be with something like this, where you can plug in the equation, change one thing, and see what happens with your parabola or whatever.
Right.
When
Math
Isaac
things
talked
we
about
do.
the virtual reality, and we speculated that a surgeon could work from one side, use these actuators to move, hands.
Yeah.
Not, obviously not little push pins, but
Yeah.
move their hands to simulate
interesting.
actual hands.
We are becoming very smart people.
So this is like with the development of human-computer interaction type
Cool.
of technology. Yeah, I think it has great potential.
Very good
Okay.
potential.
And I just want to say one more thing. You know how like the ball is moving?
Mhm.
I find that particularly interesting because say you have a big table of this and your phone's on one side of the table and you want it to come, you can just create it, make it
Like Sandman.
You
sweep
can just
over.
be like, come here, and then
That's crazy.
Telekinesis.
Okay, why don't we head up to the next one? I think this is a new galaxy. Is that a phone or something?
yeah, there's
Okay.
there's been a
That looks
new
pretty
galaxy.
Is that the one with the low light camera?
Right.
Oh, okay. There's
Capture-
actually a new galaxy.
capture
There's
the
not
best
There's not a new
blackmail.
galaxy phone. Okay,
Yeah, not this type
we just
of
want to start to
galaxy.
panic. We had people rushing to the stores. Okay, there's an
This
actual
type
new
of
galaxy.
galaxy.
I got so excited to talk about the phone.
I know. I literally thought for a minute there was some new big phone invention. But okay,
Nope.
you got us, Isaac. He's a real
Yep.
crazy guy.
So, recently you might have heard there's been a new galaxy sighting. It's pretty interesting stuff, I'll be honest. So let's get into the age of this new galaxy. When I mean age, I mean how old is it? It's about 13 billion light years old, or 13 billion years old.
Okay.
I mean,
Isn't light years a distance?
Yeah.
yeah,
13 billion years old.
13 billion years
Oh,
old.
okay.
He just.
Yeah.
Just
Right. But anyway, so you're probably wondering like how are we just noticing this now if it's been around for 13 billion years? That's because it just came to us. And you're probably thinking, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. How can it just come to us if it's been around for 13 billion years? So I'll show you how we can tell its age. So basically, light takes time to travel. I mean, not a lot of time to travel, but when you put it into perspective of space, it takes a good amount of time.
Okay.
You guys might have heard like the analogy kind of thing. Like if the sun would go out, we would have about 15 minutes before
Okay.
it would go dark. So that just goes to show that light doesn't travel super fast. And if something is 13 billion years old, it's going to have to travel a really long time to get towards us. So on here is sort of like a scale. We're way over on the left at the present day. That's actually the Hubble Space Telescope. I'll talk about that later. I'll also talk about redshifts. But so on the bottom you have the billions of years, and if you go way over to the right, there's the first stars, the Big Bang, and then it gets into the modern galaxies. Then we get to us. But if you go over to 13.4 billion years ago, that's sort of when this galaxy was made, you could say. And obviously it takes a long time for light to travel that far if it's another galaxy. So 13 billion light years. 13.1 billion light years. That's how far it had to travel.
It's a long ways.
Yeah.
I would walk 5.
Is it possible that something we see, I think like we could be seeing a star from a distant galaxy that has already actually gone out,
Yeah,
and
like, that's
we
crazy.
wouldn't find out about it until,
Yeah.
I mean, light years.
Unless we found new optics
Isn't that
that don't
interesting?
rely on the reflection
Yeah,
of
like
light.
this galaxy could be gone by now, and in like a
Yeah.
couple days, it won't be there anymore.
Why don't you tell us about these red shifts?
Yeah, redshifts. What Max was saying about the light, it's kind of similar, but this is kind of deep, pretty interesting. So if an object is moving away from you, the light wave coming towards you is red. It's called a red shift. But if the object is coming towards you, it's a blue shift. And when you get into like stuff that's like 100 million light years away, and like that and beyond, so like billions of light years away, it's red shifts because it's so far away and it's moving apart. And you can tell distance between something, like we know that this galaxy is 13.1 billion light years away because of the wavelength separation,
Okay.
like the distance between
Oh,
the
okay.
fluctuations. And then on the left there you can sort of see a graph that's just showing different light waves,
Pretty cool.
the gaps between them. But how did we spot such a little thing? Like, you can't even see that galaxy in the picture in the bottom right.
Yeah.
That is the galaxy.
So they use a telescope to observe a telescope.
Yeah, not just any telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope. I mean, you're probably thinking, yeah, it's a world-renowned telescope.
Solar panels.
But so there's a redshift scale, which is the previous record for redshift wavelength was 8.7, and that was from a land telescope.
What does that mean?
Which part?
Can you expand on that? Like, what does it mean if the red wavelength is 8.7, or if it's lower, higher?
It's called the cosmic distance record. So if it's a lower number, it's closer. Higher number, farther away. 8.7, that's pretty high. That's a couple billion light years away.
That's pretty good.
Yep. So 8.7 was the previous record by a land telescope. However, the Hubble Space Telescope, this telescope's in space, floating around. It's not from an observatory on land. The new record is 11.1 for redshift, which is kind of a significant increase.
As of one.
The
Recent?
most, yeah, a couple days ago, 5 days ago, I think, might have been
Oh,
6.
that's pretty recent.
Yeah, within the past week.
So I have a question then. Do they take the Hubble telescope down, and every time they find new telescopic technology, and they outfit it with this to try to break this record, or did it just one time hit the right position where it?
I'm not a huge expert on the Hubble Space Telescope, but yeah, I believe that it goes around visualizing the stuff, sends that information right back to Houston or NASA or whatever, and then they relay the information,
Okay.
interpret it,
Okay.
everything like that. But
Okay.
yeah, that's
Well, great. So we want to thank you for tuning in today, and thank these guys for doing such a great job finding some stories, and we'll be back next week. You have a great day. Signing off, and thank you very much.
Yep.
Sure,
signing
yeah.
off.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.